Just 36 seconds into the hearing, Trump slammed his fist on the desk, pointed at Jasmine Crockett, and hissed, "Her intelligence is subpar. I dare her to prove me wrong with a test." Cameras went wild, snapping pictures. Gasps echoed around the room. But Jasmine didn't flinch. Calmly, she pulled a sealed envelope from her folder and let it fall to the table, like a judge banging a gavel. What was inside that stunned even Trump, leaving him looking like he'd seen a ghost? The atmosphere in the hearing chamber felt like it had been devoid of real truth for years. Everything seemed overly polished, as if democracy itself had been buffed to a mirror shine. The marble floors sparkled like ice, and the walls were so shiny they reflected back your conscience. Flags hung behind the action, stiff and lifeless, like they were forced into submission. Even the air felt choreographed, too cold, too pristine, as if someone had sucked the tension out but left the underlying dread. The red lights on the microphones blinked like targeting beams above every seat. The ceiling lights didn't just shine, they stabbed down, their harsh glare meant to expose every flaw, every drop of sweat, every anxious twitch of a liar. This wasn't just Capitol Hill, it felt like a stage. And today, the leading role belonged to a woman who didn't need a microphone. Jasmine Crockett walked in like she had done this before, but never with this kind of weight. Her heels didn't just click, they thudded, with each step echoing like a countdown, not to an explosion, but to something big being revealed. She didn't wear bright colors or a flashy smile. Instead, she donned a navy suit sharp enough to cut through any nonsense, and her steady gaze was enough to freeze the smirk off a tycoon. Jim Jordan noticed her first, nudging Eric Trump and whispering something like teenage troublemakers in detention, part laugh, part nervousness, all show. Eric turned back, sizing her up like he was checking out a shirt his dad wouldn't approve of, and shook his head. At the witness table sat none other than Donald J. Trump, looking every bit the storm he's known to be. His elbows were planted, fingers intertwined, and a smug grin spread across his face. It was a smile that seemed to claim the space around him, the cameras, the truth, everything. He didn't offer a nod or even a blink, just fixed his gaze on Jasmine as she walked by, like a predator sizing up the one person who wouldn't flinch at his display. But Jasmine stood her ground. She barely acknowledged the bravado, sliding into her seat quietly, opening her folder as if gearing up for something monumental, and positioning an envelope right in the center. No label, no rush, just a simple, silent gesture. But the mood changed when that envelope touched the table. There was this electric tension, like a spark just before a fire ignites. CNN zoomed in, MSNBC adjusted their sound, and social media erupted. The phrase IQ test began trending even before it was spoken. Chairman Mlen cleared his throat, preparing to lay down the law. Today, we're going to examine the transparency of the academic credentials mentioned during the campaign and look at how standardized tests play a part in public leadership. He didn't meet Trump's eyes, but the rest of the room certainly did. Jasmine tapped the envelope lightly, a soft sound, but it hit like a judge's gavel, sharp and definitive. For just a moment, Trump's grin slipped. Only Jasmine noticed. And when someone like Trump flinches first, there's no need for a big reaction. You just sit back and let the trap spring on its own. What happens when America's loudest voice pushes the wrong woman to stand up for herself? The atmosphere in the room grew thick, almost heavy, definitely not peaceful, but more like the tension before a storm. Trump leaned into the microphone, squared his shoulders as if waiting for applause, and started to read off his comments on education reform. He barely got through a sentence about bringing back academic excellence before his gaze darted to Jasmine, and the tension in the air heightened. He paused, gave a smile that wasn't charming at all, more like a predator sizing up its prey, and began speaking, his voice smooth and slick as oil on asphalt. Honestly, some people here shouldn't even be in this room. Just look at her. His finger pointed, not quite, but it was directed at Jasmine like a weapon. Low intellect. A second-rate version of AOC. I wouldn't trust either of them to run a classroom, much less Congress. There it was. The first strike, direct and calculated, just vague enough to sidestep immediate backlash until the cameras caught every single word. A soft chuckle bubbled up from the right side of the room. It was Marjorie Taylor Greene, her laugh sharp and nasal, dripping with smugness. She tried to cover her mouth, but her shoulders gave her away. Jim Jordan had a smirk on his face. Eric Trump leaned back, grinning like a kid showing off a trophy for his dad's antics. Republican aides held back their smiles, but they didn't need to hide them. The moment had made its mark. They thought they had thrown her off balance. But Jasmine Crockett didn't move, didn't even blink, and didn't reach for the mic. She sat there calmly, her fingertip lightly touching the sealed envelope in front of her, as if it were a trigger she hadn't decided to pull yet. Inside, the noise in her head was louder than any mic could catch. They're looking for fury. They want the clip of the angry black woman. They want a soundbite. I'll give them something unexpected, something quieter. Meanwhile, Trump kept going. I've taken IQ tests, tough ones. Not everyone can do that. You have to be brilliant. His grin grew wider. I aced them. That's why I'm here, and they're, well, struggling. He ignored the chairman, brushed aside the cameras, and focused solely on Jasmine. Then, in that reckless way he had of dismissing scandals, he said, "Let's settle this with an IQ test." Just 8 words. That's all it took for his words to bounce across the internet in seconds, to shatter the room like glass under pressure, and to haunt him by the end of the day. The tension in the air broke. Reporters blinked in disbelief. Phones shot up. Gasps rippled through the room like a breeze through wheat. Yet Jasmine didn't even lift an eyebrow. She just shifted in her seat, raised the envelope a bit, and nudged it closer to the mic. The simple action felt powerful, like thunder. Trump, too caught up in the chaos he thought he was controlling, didn't even notice. But Jasmine knew that chaos could be managed more easily than the truth, especially when it came wrapped in sealed white paper. And inside that paper was a truth that 31 million Americans weren't prepared for. Not yet. But they would be. Because Donald Trump had just challenged the wrong woman to a test. The atmosphere in the room was still buzzing from the earlier outburst. Trump lounged back, looking like a fighter who knew he was going to win the first round. Eric was grinning as he scrolled through his phone, probably glued to the clip that was already making waves on X. Jim Jordan leaned in to whisper to Marjorie, who was busy jotting down something in bold on a yellow notepad. They were all convinced that Jasmine had taken a hit and was down for the count. But then, she calmly leaned toward the clerk's desk, almost polite. "I'd like to defer my questioning until the end of the session," she said, her voice steady and controlled, not needing to be loud. It was that kind of calm that makes you feel the pressure shift in a room, like the stillness right before a storm hits. The clerk blinked in surprise. The chairman paused for a moment, then nodded. Approved. Nobody asked why, but a few glances became sharper. Something had changed, they just couldn't put their finger on it. Meanwhile, 2 aides from Jasmine's team made their way quietly down the back hallway, almost like ghosts with a purpose. One of them held a sleek black portfolio while the other clutched a thick, sealed brown envelope marked with 4 faded words in typewriter ink. Confidential 1964 admissions. Jasmine didn't turn to look back as it was delivered. She didn't need to. When it landed on the table behind her, she could feel it, not in her hands, but deep in her spine. History has its own rhythm. She slipped the envelope beneath her papers, her fingers resting on it as if trying to hold back a spirit that was rising too soon. Across the room, Trump was rambling about failing schools and unqualified individuals, his words loud yet lacking substance. Jasmine wasn't paying attention. Instead, she was thinking back to her father, an inner-city teacher making just $42,000 a year, sitting at their kitchen table and telling her, the most dangerous weapon in a room is truth dressed as a whisper. She was only 9 then and didn't quite understand. But now, she was living it. She smiled, but not in a way that showed her teeth, more like a chess master pondering their next move that could lead to checkmate in just 3 turns. The chairman called for a break. You could hear chairs scraping against the floor and reporters typing away. Trump, stretching and laughing, joked about wasting time on nobodies. Yet, this time, he avoided looking at Jasmine, almost as if some hidden instinct beneath his bravado was telling him she wasn't done. She wasn't holding just any paper, she had something that didn't just make noise but could blow up the whole situation. What could be in that envelope that made Trump wish the cameras were off? The atmosphere in the room had changed, and no one could really say when that shift happened. It wasn't loud or dramatic, more like the quiet before a storm, or even the animals pause and the leaves seem to shift. Something was coming from Jasmine Crockett's corner. She hadn't said a word since Trump had his outburst, but her silence was powerful. She'd asked for the last questioning slot, and no one dared to challenge her again. It was like, by staying quiet, she had claimed the spotlight, unnoticed until it was too late. The cameras picked up on it, CNN zoomed in on her unreadable expression. Not angry but laser-focused, like someone watching a ticking bomb. Even the studio host stumbled a bit. Congresswoman Crockett seems to be holding back something significant today. We'll keep her feed live. Outside, the rumors were buzzing. NBC sent out an alert. Jasmine Crockett delays her response, requests the final slot. Headlines were popping up everywhere. What is she waiting for? Does she have a bigger plan? Is it silence or strategy? Inside, she sat still, fingers gently wrapped around an uncapped pen, occasionally checking her watch, not for the time, but to find a rhythm, syncing her breath to a hidden pulse. Just 3 seats away, Marjorie Taylor Greene leaned over to Jim Jordan and whispered, "She's shaken. She's got nothing." Jordan nodded, but his attention kept wandering to Jasmine's folder, particularly the envelope tucked inside. Meanwhile, Trump shifted gears from his usual arrogance to playful bragging, proclaiming loudly about his unbeatable hearings. "Nobody's even tried to challenge me," he boasted, his voice ringing out like a bad actor on stage. But Jasmine wasn't focused on him. She was surveying the room, taking note of who laughed, who squirmed, and who avoided making eye contact. She wasn't there to pick a fight. She was just letting things unfold until the knot tightened. An aide made a discreet signal, just a nod and a quick look at her phone. Jasmine glanced at it once, then set it aside, her face a mask of neutrality. Everything was in place. The document was confirmed. The source was solid. The moment was close, but not just yet. Let them keep laughing. Traps are most effective when no one realizes they're there. And Jasmine wasn't stalling out of fear, she was biding her time because when the truth finally hits, it's not a loud shout. It's a seismic shift. A quiet knock on the side door of the room signaled the moment. An aide walked in, clutching a plain manila envelope tightly under her arm, almost as if it were a dangerous secret. At first, no one seemed to notice. The silence was more piercing than any noise. Jasmine waited until the aide was standing right behind her, then reached back with care, her fingers wrapping around the envelope like it was a live wire. Her father's voice echoed in her mind. The most dangerous thing you can carry is truth disguised as a whisper. She slid it under her notes, maintaining a calm demeanor as if this was just another day on the job. But it really wasn't. This was the last piece of a puzzle that had taken weeks to put together: a signed affidavit, 2 background checks, and a man who had stayed quiet for 58 years. The name on the document was blacked out, but Jasmine knew it by heart: Robert Steedman, who was in military school with Trump and took the SAT for him back in 1964 for a cool grand. Inside were 2 pages, a letter from the New York Military Academy from 1964, confirming Trump's absence from the exam, and Steedman's sworn statement, supported by military records and handwriting verification. Jasmine didn't feel the need to go over it again. Every word was permanently marked in her mind. This wasn't just about intelligence or arrogance. It was a lie that had been buried for so long it seemed almost legendary. But there it was, right in front of her. While Trump boasted about how he excelled on tests, she decided not to interrupt, allowing the trap to spring on its own. When it was her turn, she stood up with the precision of someone ready for court. "Mr. Trump," she started quietly, "you've referred to yourself as a stable genius with exceptional test scores, correct?" Trump smiled widely. "That's right. Best scores ever. Got me into Wharton." She nodded, letting the silence linger. "You've made claims about having top grades. Would you be willing to release your SAT scores and transcripts?" He laughed it off. "Sure, I've got nothing to hide. They'll prove everything." She tapped her folder lightly. "I have records of your test history. Do you mind if we look them over?" He shrugged casually. "Go for it. They'll confirm it." The hook was now firmly in place. She turned to the chairman. "I'll present these documents at the end of my testimony." Trump smirked, saying, "Transparency, see?" But he didn't catch her subtle change in strategy. She wasn't attacking him. Instead, she was letting him construct his own downfall. The room was tense as Jasmine carefully opened the folder, revealing an old, yellowed letter. She held it up for everyone to see, then positioned it for the cameras. "This is a letter from the New York Military Academy dated May 10, 1964, she announced. It states that Cadet Donald J. Trump did not take his SAT on May 2, 1964. No reason given, no rescheduling." A collective gasp filled the room, while Trump chuckled too loudly, dismissing it. "Nonsense. I had perfect scores." Jasmine then pulled out a tablet and played a shaky video of Robert Steedman lying in a hospital bed. He said, "In 1964, I received $1,000 from Fred Trump to take the SAT for his son." The atmosphere turned icy. Trump lost it, slamming his fist on the desk. "Fake news. He's not real." Jasmine remained calm and replied, "Steedman's statement has been verified by investigators and notarized. It's part of the official record now." Trump stood up, his fists tight. "Get rid of it. This is a hoax." Chairman Len interjected, "You testified under oath." "She has evidence." Eric Trump shouted, "Shut off the feed." But the cameras kept rolling. Jasmine sat back, having sprung the trap without raising her voice. The atmosphere in the room was tense as Eric's anxiety became palpable. Marjorie Taylor Greene leaped up, insisting that any evidence be tossed out for being unconstitutional. Meanwhile, Len remained composed, responding, "Everything shared under oath stays, including verified testimony." Trump was visibly upset, but Jasmine interjected. "You offered your records, and we've confirmed the facts," she pointed out. "You called me low IQ, but I didn't respond in kind. I let the truth come out on its own." A heavy silence settled over the chamber, leaving everyone in shock. Trump sat there, nervously tracing circles with his fingers. Jasmine then pulled out her tablet, bringing up a case about Danielle Harmon, the daughter of Elliot Harmon, a black student who had a 1420 SAT score but was turned away from Wharton in 1964 due to quotas. As she read aloud his rejection letter, a handwritten note stood out. "Too many quotas filled. Too risky." The room felt like it was holding its breath. Jasmine continued, "He was just 17, a valedictorian, turned down because someone wealthy but less qualified took his spot." The silence hung in the air, a stark reminder of the injustice. Danielle's video started playing, and her voice cracked as she said, "My father drove a bus for 32 years, carrying that pain." Then came a voicemail from Elliot. "I thought I wasn't good enough." The screen went dark. Jasmine stood up and said, "My father used to say that lies stretch until the light makes them disappear. Today is that light for Elliot and for others who have been ignored." Trump was just sitting there, not saying a word. You could feel the weight of the moment in the room, like a ghost was speaking. Outside, social media exploded. #SitDownGenius was trending, with millions of posts. Jasmine held up a new folder that had a stamp saying classified U.S. Department of Education. The transcript that Trump had shown was fake, spelling mistakes in the courses, an old font from 1989, and a forged registrar's signature. Dr. Eli Breener confirmed it. The document isn't real. Jasmine turned to Trump and asked, "Is lying about IQ worse than lying about nuclear codes?" The room fell silent. AOC stated, "This is about deception as a tactic of governance." Raskin suggested that the DOJ look into possible fraud. Meanwhile, Trump just sat there, seemingly lost for words. Jasmine pointed out a troubling pattern. Trump's low IQ jabs were often aimed at women of color like Waters, AOC, Omar, and Crockett. "This isn't just talk," she explained. "It's a ritual meant to demean those who can't be controlled." It became clear what his strategy looked like. Jasmine held up a sign, Article 1, Section 6. "This is my protection," she declared. "I didn't choose to sit. I stood up for every woman who's ever been told they're too much." As she wrapped up, she said, "I may yield my time, but I'll never yield my worth." Trump's departure felt empty. The world took notice. Murals of Jasmine appeared, and her words reverberated, "I will never yield my worth." A young girl hugged her, promising to speak just like her. Jasmine replied softly, "You already do." The truth had transformed. It was no longer just written, it was vibrant and unstoppable.